The smartwatch buzzed at 2:17 a.m., casting a pale blue glow across our bedroom ceiling. Claire's arm hung limp over the nightstand, her breathing deep and rhythmic after another late night at the office. I should have rolled over and gone back to sleep. I should have minded my own business, but the message preview was right there, glowing like a neon confession. Love you too, bossman. Can't wait for tomorrow night. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. My name is Nathan Brooks, and I'm a software engineer who just discovered his wife's operating system has been compromised. I slipped the watch from Claire's wrist with the precision of a surgeon. Her phone was over, convenient, so I'd been looking for a charger when I stumbled across this little gem. The full message thread made my stomach drop faster than a corrupted database. Months of exchanges with someone named MG, Martin Geller, her boss. Sweet nothings mixed with work complaints, photos of expensive dinners I definitely hadn't paid for, and enough heart emojis to crash a server. Nathan? Claire's voice cut through the darkness. What are you doing? I set the watch back down, my hand surprisingly steady. Looking for a phone charger, your watch was buzzing. She sat up, instantly alert in that way that guilty people master. Probably just work notifications. You know how crazy things have been with the merger. At 2 a.m.? Global clients, different time zones. She reached for the watch, checking it with practiced casualness. Martin's been working around the clock to get this deal closed. Martin. She said his name like it tasted good. Since when do you call your CEO by his first name? I kept my voice neutral, debugging mode engaged. Claire's laugh sounded like breaking glass. Since I got promoted to VP, remember? We're on the executive team now. It's more collaborative. Right. Collaborative. That's what they're calling it these days. I climbed back into bed, but sleep was about as likely as Claire telling the truth. Instead, I stared at the ceiling and ran diagnostics on my marriage. When had Claire started working late every Thursday? When did she start dressing like she was auditioning for a fashion magazine instead of managing IT projects? When did she stop laughing at my jokes and start looking at me like I was malware she couldn't quite delete? The next morning, Claire was already gone when I woke up. A post-it note on the coffee maker read, "Early meeting. Don't wait up tonight. Team dinner." Her handwriting looked different somehow, more hurried, like she was rushing to get away from something. Or someone. I made coffee and opened my laptop, muscle memory guiding me through my morning routine. But instead of checking work emails, I found myself staring at a blank terminal window, cursor blinking like a heartbeat. 20 years of marriage, and I was about to hack my wife's digital life. The irony wasn't lost on me. I spent my days fixing broken code, and here I was, discovering my own life needed a complete system restore. My phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Brooks? This is Janine from Mulligan's bar. I think you left your credit card here last night? I hadn't been to Mulligan's in months, but I played along. I'll stop by after work to pick it up. Great. I'll be here until closing. And hey, if you want to grab a drink, I've got some things I think you should know about. You know, about Claire and all. The line went silent, leaving me with more questions than answers. But one thing was becoming crystal clear. If my marriage was a software program, someone had been making unauthorized changes to the source code. I spent the day at my real job, troubleshooting network issues and pretending everything was normal. But my mind kept wandering back to that watch, those messages, the way Claire had said Martin's name. By 5 p.m., I was ready for answers. Mulligan's bar squatted between a dry cleaner and a tax office like a guilty secret. The kind of place where people went to forget their problems or share them with strangers. Janine turned out to be a bottle blonde in her 40s with kind eyes and the weathered hands of someone who'd served a lot of drinks to a lot of troubled people. "You really didn't leave a card here," she said, sliding a beer across the scarred wooden bar. but I've been wanting to talk to you for weeks. About Claire. About Claire and Martin Geller. She glanced around the mostly empty bar, then leaned closer. Look, I don't like getting involved in other people's business, but Claire's been coming in here every Thursday night for the past 3 months, always with him, always sitting in that corner booth acting like teenagers. My beer suddenly tasted like disappointment. You're sure it was them? Honey, I've been tending bar for 15 years. I know the difference between a business meeting and whatever those two were doing. She pulled out her phone, swiped through some photos. I took this last Thursday. Thought you might want to see it. The image hit me like a system crash. Claire and Martin, faces close together, her hand on his chest, both of them laughing at some private joke. She was wearing the silver necklace I'd given her for our anniversary, the one she claimed to have lost. I'm sorry, Janine said softly. I know this isn't easy to see. I stared at the photo until the pixels seemed to rearrange themselves into new patterns of betrayal. Can you send this to me? Already did. My phone buzzed with the incoming message. There's more, if you want to hear it. I nodded, not trusting my voice. They've been planning something. I couldn't hear everything, but I caught pieces. Something about getting rid of extra weight after the merger goes through. About starting fresh. She refilled my beer without being asked. Claire kept talking about how you wouldn't be a problem much longer. The words hit like malware, spreading through my system and corrupting everything I thought I knew. Extra weight. That's how my wife of 20 years saw me. A problem to be solved. I finished my beer in silence, paid my tab, and walked out into the cool evening air. My phone buzzed with a text from Claire. Dinner running late. Don't wait up. For the first time in months, I smiled, because Claire had made a critical error in her code. She'd underestimated the quiet guy in IT, the one who fixed problems for a living, the one who knew that every system had vulnerabilities if you knew where to look. Time for a little penetration testing. I spent the weekend playing the perfect husband while running background processes on my wife's digital footprint. Claire came home Saturday morning with shopping bags and guilt gifts, expensive cologne I'd never wear, and a watch I didn't need. She was trying too hard, talking too fast, overcompensating like a system running too many programs at once. You seem distracted lately, she said, arranging flowers she'd bought for herself. Everything okay at work? Just debugging some persistent issues, I replied, which was technically true. Nothing I can't handle. Sunday morning brought an interesting development. Our neighbor, Mrs. Halloran, cornered me while I was getting the newspaper. She was 70-something with the observational skills of a security camera and the discretion of a social media influencer. Nathan, dear, I hope you don't mind me asking, but has Claire been having car trouble? I paused, newspaper halfway out of the box. Not that I know of. Why? Well, there's been this black BMW parked outside your house every Tuesday and Thursday when you're at work. Same car, same time. The driver always waits until Claire comes out, then follows her down the street. She adjusted her glasses with the satisfaction of someone delivering crucial intelligence. I just thought it was odd, you know? Like maybe she was having car trouble and needed rides. A BMW. Martin Geller drove a black BMW M5. I'd seen it in the company parking lot, gleaming like his oversized ego. Thanks for letting me know, Mrs. Halloran. I'll ask Claire about it. But I didn't ask Claire. Instead, I did what any good IT professional would do. I gathered more data. Monday morning, I installed a discreet GPS tracker on Claire's car. Nothing illegal, just a family safety app that she'd agreed to months ago but never activated. By Tuesday afternoon, I was watching her location on my phone like a real-time thriller. She left work at 3 p.m., drove to the Grandview Hotel downtown, and stayed there for 3 hours. The same hotel where her company held executive meetings. The same hotel where Martin probably kept a suite for business purposes. Tuesday evening, she came home with her hair slightly mussed and her lipstick gone, claiming she'd been in budget meetings all afternoon. "How was your day?" she asked, kissing my cheek with lips that tasted like lies. productive. Fixed a major security vulnerability in the Peterson account. Amazing how easy it is to access someone's system when they don't know you're watching. She paused, wine glass halfway to her lips. That's nice, dear. Wednesday, I made my first move. I drove to Claire's office building during lunch, not to see her, but to scout the terrain. The Geller Tech headquarters was all glass and steel, the kind of building that screamed, "We're successful, and we want everyone to know it." I'd been there for a few company parties, back when Claire still wanted me around for appearances. The security guard, Peterson, recognized me. He was ex-military, early 50s, with the bearing of someone who'd seen enough bullshit to fill a database. "Nathan, good to see you. Here to surprise Claire?" "Something like that. Actually, I was wondering if you could help me with something." I pulled out my phone, showing him a photo of Claire's keycard. "She thinks she lost this somewhere in the building. Any chance your cameras might have caught where she dropped it?" Peterson's expression shifted slightly. In my experience, security guards saw everything and said nothing, but they appreciated honesty when they encountered it. "Tell you what," he said, glancing around the empty lobby. "Why don't you come back Thursday around 6 p.m.? I'll have had a chance to review the footage by then." Thursday. The same day Claire had been meeting Martin at Mulligan's bar. The same day she'd been getting picked up by a black BMW. "I appreciate it, Peterson, really." "No problem. And Nathan?" He leaned closer, voice dropping. "Between you and me, there's been some talk around here. About the merger, about changes coming. Just watch your back, you know?" I left the building with more questions than answers, but also with a growing sense that I wasn't the only one who'd noticed something was wrong. Sometimes the best intelligence came from the people everyone else ignored. Security guards, bartenders, nosy neighbors. The invisible network of observers who saw everything and remembered more. That evening, Claire announced she'd be working late again. "Big presentation tomorrow," she said, already changing into what she called her power outfit. A black dress that cost more than my monthly salary. "Don't wait up." I waited exactly 30 minutes after she left, then drove to the Grandview Hotel. The parking garage was dimly lit, full of shadows and expensive cars. I found Martin's BMW on the third level, parked in a spot marked reserved. The license plate read Winner One, because apparently subtlety wasn't in his programming. I didn't damage anything. I'm not a vandal. But I did slip Claire's work badge, the one she'd reported lost, into the gap between his front bumper and grille. Just deep enough to be invisible, but shallow enough to be found by anyone who looked carefully. Then I waited. At 9:47 p.m., they emerged from the elevator together. Claire was laughing at something Martin had said, her hand on his arm in a way that made my chest tight. Martin was tall, silver-haired, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my car. He had the confident swagger of someone who'd never been told no, never been denied anything he wanted. They stopped beside his car, and I watched through my camera lens as he pulled her close, kissing her like they were starring in their own private movie. Claire, my wife, the mother of my daughter, melted into him like she'd been waiting all day for that moment. I took photos, lots of them. When they finally separated, Martin got into his BMW and drove away. Claire walked to her own car, checking her appearance in the side mirror before getting in. She sat there for several minutes, probably composing herself, getting ready to come home and lie to my face again. I made it home 20 minutes before she did, just enough time to transfer the photos to my secure server and clear my browser history. When Claire walked through the door at 10:30, I was on the couch watching Netflix, the picture of domestic contentment. "How was the presentation prep?" I asked, without looking away from the screen. "Exhausting, but I think we're ready." She sat down beside me, curling up against my side like she used to do when we were young and still told each other the truth. "What are you watching?" "Documentary about corporate espionage. Fascinating stuff. Amazing how people can live double lives for years without getting caught. She stiffened slightly. Sounds boring. Actually, it's pretty engaging once you get into it. All about how the truth always comes out eventually, no matter how careful people think they're being. Claire stood up abruptly. I'm exhausted. Going to bed. I listened to her move around upstairs, shower running, drawers opening and closing, the familiar sounds of someone trying to wash away evidence of their betrayal. When she finally settled into bed, I opened my laptop and began planning phase 2. Because if Claire thought she could delete me from her life like an unwanted file, she was about to learn something about system administration. I wasn't just the IT guy anymore. I was the administrator. And I was about to revoke some access privileges. Friday morning brought an email that made everything crystal clear. The subject line read, Geller Tech Annual Gala, Invitation Update. The message was brief and brutal. Dear Mr. Brooks, due to venue capacity limitations, we regret to inform you that this year's gala will be limited to employees and executive-level guests only. We appreciate your understanding. Geller Tech Events Team. I'd been uninvited to my own wife's company party. The same party I'd attended for the past 5 years. The same party where Claire would undoubtedly be hanging on Martin's arm, playing the role of his devoted lieutenant, while I sat at home like a discarded piece of hardware. But they'd made a critical error. They'd assumed I'd accept their decision quietly, like the boring IT husband who never made waves. They'd forgotten that I spent my days solving problems that other people couldn't fix. I forwarded the email to my personal account, then did something that would have made my old computer science professor proud. I began crafting a logic bomb. Not the destructive kind. I wasn't interested in criminal charges. But every system has vulnerabilities, and Geller Tech's network was no exception. I'd noticed it during my previous visits to Claire's office. Their guest Wi-Fi used the same authentication server as their internal network. A classic security oversight that most companies never bothered to fix. I spent the weekend writing code. Clean, elegant, undetectable code that would sit dormant in their system until activated by a specific trigger. I called it primary key missing, a database error that would cascade through their network like dominoes, causing maximum embarrassment with minimal permanent damage. The gala was scheduled for Saturday night. I had 6 days to position all the pieces. Monday, I visited Peterson again. Any luck with those security tapes? I asked, though I already knew what he'd found. Peterson's expression was grim. Nathan, I've been doing security for 20 years and I've learned when to mind my own business. But you seem like a decent guy, and what I saw on those tapes... He shook his head. Your wife and Geller have been using the executive conference room for activities that definitely aren't business-related. I appreciate your honesty. There's more. I overheard them talking yesterday about the gala. Geller was bragging about how he'd cleaned house with the guest list. Said something about not wanting any extra weight around when he makes his big announcement. Extra weight? There was that phrase again. What kind of announcement? Merger's going through. He's planning to restructure the whole company, bring in his own people. A lot of folks are going to lose their jobs. Peterson leaned closer, including some people who might have inconvenient information about his personal activities. The pieces were falling into place. Martin wasn't just stealing my wife. He was planning to eliminate anyone who might threaten his perfect corporate image, including me. Peterson, hypothetically speaking, if someone wanted to access the building's Wi-Fi network, how would they go about it? He studied me for a long moment. Hypothetically, the guest network password is GellerTech 2023, but you didn't hear that from me. Tuesday evening, Claire announced she'd be shopping for a dress for the gala. I want to look perfect for Martin's big night, she said, then caught herself. I mean, for the company's big night. This merger is huge for all of us. I'm sure you'll be stunning, I replied. Shame I won't be there to see it. She had the grace to look slightly guilty. I'm sorry about that. The venue really is small, and with all the investors and board members. Of course, I understand completely. But I could see the relief in her eyes. She was glad I wouldn't be there, glad she could play her role without worrying about her inconvenient husband watching from the sidelines. Wednesday, I made my final preparations. I drove to the Grandview Hotel, where the gala would be held, and confirmed what I already suspected. Their event Wi-Fi was provided by the same company that handled Geller Tech's network. One login would give me access to everything. Thursday brought an unexpected gift. Claire's phone rang during dinner, and she stepped into the kitchen to answer it. I could hear Martin's voice through the speaker, arrogant, commanding, treating her like an employee even in private. "The Peterson situation is handled," he was saying. "I'm transferring him to the night shift after the gala. Can't have him spreading rumors." "What about Nathan?" Claire's voice was barely audible. "What about him? After Saturday, it won't matter what he knows or thinks he knows. You'll file for divorce, cite irreconcilable differences, and we'll be free to make this official." My hand tightened around my water glass. They weren't just planning to humiliate me. They were planning to discard me entirely. "I feel bad about lying to him," Claire said, though her tone suggested she'd get over it quickly. Martin's laugh was like fingernails on a chalkboard. "He's a glorified computer repairman, Claire. He'll find another job, another wife, another boring little life. People like him always do. People like him. Like me." I set down my glass very carefully and walked upstairs to my office. I opened my laptop, loaded my primary key missing program, and made one final adjustment to the code. Because Martin Geller was about to learn that glorified computer repairmen could be very dangerous when properly motivated. Friday night, Claire tried on her gala dress, a stunning red number that probably cost more than most people's rent. She looked beautiful, radiant, like a woman preparing for the most important night of her life. "How do I look?" she asked, posing in front of our bedroom mirror. "Like someone I used to know," I said quietly. She frowned, not understanding, but didn't ask for clarification. She was already mentally at the gala, already standing beside Martin as he announced their new future together. Saturday afternoon, she left early for hair and makeup appointments. I waited until her car disappeared around the corner, then began my own preparations. I showered, shaved, and put on my best suit, the charcoal gray one I'd worn to our wedding. I loaded my laptop bag with everything I'd need: portable Wi-Fi adapter, backup phone, and a small device that would make the evening much more interesting. At 6 p.m., I drove to the Grandview Hotel. The valet looked surprised when I pulled up in my modest sedan between a Mercedes and a Tesla. "Good evening, sir. Are you here for the Geller Tech event?" "Wouldn't miss it," I said, handing him my keys. The ballroom was exactly as I'd expected: crystal chandeliers, ice sculptures, and 300 people in expensive clothes pretending to enjoy each other's company. I spotted Claire immediately. She was standing beside Martin near the main stage, playing the perfect corporate wife-to-be. Security tried to stop me at the door. "Excuse me, sir, but I don't see your name on the guest list." "That's because there's been a mistake," I said, pulling out my phone and connecting to the hotel's Wi-Fi network. "Let me just fix that for you." My fingers flew across the screen, executing the program I'd spent weeks perfecting. Within seconds, every screen in the ballroom, from the registration tablets to the massive display monitors, flickered and went dark. Then, in large red letters, a message appeared on every screen: "Primary key missing. System integrity compromised." The room erupted in confused murmurs. Martin grabbed a microphone, trying to maintain control. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing a minor technical difficulty. Please remain calm while our IT team resolves the issue." That's when I stepped forward, my voice carrying clearly across the suddenly quiet ballroom. "Actually, Martin, I think I can help with that. After all, I am the IT guy." The silence in the ballroom was deafening. 300 faces turned toward me like flowers following the sun, their expressions ranging from confusion to recognition to dawning horror. Claire went pale, her champagne glass trembling in her hand. Martin's confident smile faltered as he realized his perfect evening was about to become a nightmare. "Nathan?" Claire's voice was barely a whisper, but the ballroom's acoustics carried it to every corner. "What are you doing here?" I walked slowly toward the stage, my laptop bag slung over my shoulder, every step deliberate and measured. The crowd parted before me like I was carrying something contagious. "I'm here to fix a problem," I announced, my voice carrying clearly in the stunned silence. "See, someone's been making unauthorized changes to some very important systems, and as any good IT professional will tell you, unauthorized access always leaves traces." Martin stepped forward, trying to regain control of his event. "Security, remove this man immediately. He's not supposed to be here." 2 security guards moved toward me, but I held up my phone, finger hovering over the screen. "I wouldn't do that if I were you, Martin, unless you want everyone here to see exactly what kind of files you've been storing on the company server." The guards hesitated. Martin's face went from confident to concerned to genuinely worried in the space of 3 seconds. "You're bluffing," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Am I?" I tapped my screen, and suddenly the ballroom's speakers crackled to life. Martin's voice filled the room, crystal clear and unmistakably arrogant. "She'll file for divorce, cite irreconcilable differences, and we'll be free to make this official. He's a glorified computer repairman, Claire. He'll find another job, another wife, another boring little life." The gasps from the crowd were audible. I saw board members exchanging glances, investors pulling out their phones, and Claire looking like she wanted to disappear into the marble floor. But I wasn't done, not even close. "That was recorded 3 days ago," I continued, walking closer to the stage. "But I've got plenty more where that came from. Would you like to hear the conversation about embezzling company funds to pay for your little love nest? Or maybe the one where you discuss firing employees who might ask inconvenient questions?" Martin's composure cracked completely. "You're lying! This is harassment!" "No, Martin, this is accountability." I pulled out my laptop, connected it to the ballroom's AV system with a cable I'd brought specifically for this purpose, and began my presentation. The screens around the room flickered back to life, now displaying a carefully curated slideshow of evidence. Photo 1. Claire and Martin kissing in the hotel parking garage. Photo 2. Bank records showing suspicious transfers from company accounts to Martin's personal holdings. Photo 3. Email threads discussing the Nathan problem and how to eliminate it permanently. The crowd was riveted. This was better than any corporate presentation they'd ever seen. It was real-time drama with actual consequences. Claire finally found her voice. "Nathan, stop this. You're embarrassing yourself." I turned to look at her. This woman I'd loved for 20 years, who'd shared my bed while planning my destruction. "I'm embarrassing myself?" "Claire, you've been playing house with your boss for months while lying to my face every single day. You've been planning to divorce me so you can upgrade to a newer model, and you think I'm the one who should be embarrassed?" The ballroom was so quiet you could hear the ice melting in the sculptures. "You want to know what's really embarrassing?" I continued, clicking to the next slide. "It's that you thought I was too stupid to figure it out, too boring to fight back, too weak to defend myself." The new slide showed a detailed breakdown of Martin's embezzlement scheme. Money diverted from employee pension funds, fake vendor accounts, inflated expenses that went straight into his pocket. I'd spent weeks reconstructing his financial crimes from fragments of data I'd gathered during my visits to the office. "Jesus Christ," someone whispered from the crowd. I recognized the voice of Robert Chen, chairman of the board of directors. Martin was sweating now, his perfect hair beginning to wilt under the stage lights. "This is all fabricated," He's a disgruntled employee trying to sabotage the merger. Actually, I don't work for your company, I replied calmly. I never have, which means I have no employment contract to violate, no confidentiality agreement to breach. I'm just a concerned citizen sharing information that I believe the public has a right to know. I clicked to the final slide. A comprehensive timeline of Martin and Claire's affair, complete with dates, locations, and financial transactions. Hotel receipts, restaurant bills, jewelry purchases, all paid for with company money, all carefully documented. The merger you're celebrating tonight? It's based on fraudulent financial reports, the growth numbers you've been bragging about. They're inflated by the money you've stolen from your own employees, and the woman standing beside you, she's been helping you cover it all up while planning to throw her husband under the bus. The crowd erupted. Board members were shouting questions, investors were demanding explanations, and security was trying to figure out who they were supposed to be protecting from whom. Martin made a desperate play for control. Ladies and gentlemen, this man is clearly unstable. He's broken into our systems, violated our privacy, and is making wild accusations based on fabricated evidence. Fabricated? I pulled out my phone and played another recording, this one of Claire and Martin discussing how to frame me for the very security breaches I'd been documenting. Their voices filled the ballroom, clear and damning. We plant some evidence on his computer, make it look like he's been stealing company data. Industrial espionage. He'll be too busy defending himself in court to cause us any problems. That was the moment Claire broke. She lunged toward me, her perfectly manicured nails aimed at my face, screaming about how I'd ruined everything. Security finally moved, but not to restrain me. They grabbed Claire as she tried to claw my eyes out. "You bastard!" she shrieked as they pulled her back. "You pathetic, vindictive bastard! You've destroyed everything." "No, Claire," I said quietly, my voice somehow carrying over her screams. "You destroyed everything. I just documented it." Martin tried one last desperate gambit. He grabbed the microphone and addressed the crowd directly. "Don't listen to him. He's a nobody, a glorified computer repairman who can't accept that his wife found someone better." The crowd's reaction was immediate and brutal. Boos, jeers, and shouts of, "Get off the stage!" filled the ballroom. These were business people, and they knew the smell of corruption when it was laid out this clearly. Robert Chen stepped forward, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Martin Geller, as chairman of the board, I'm calling an emergency meeting for Monday morning. Until then, you're suspended from all duties. Security, please escort Mr. Geller from the premises." "You can't do this to me," Martin protested as security moved toward him. "I built this company. I made you all rich." "With stolen money," Chen replied coldly. "Nathan, I assume you've shared this information with the appropriate authorities." I nodded. "FBI Financial Crimes Division, SEC, and the District Attorney's Office. They should have everything by Monday morning." As security led Martin away, he turned back to glare at me with pure hatred. "This isn't over, Brooks. You have no idea what you've started." "Actually," I replied, packing up my laptop, "I know exactly what I've started. It's called justice." The crowd began to disperse, guests streaming toward the exits while frantically making phone calls. The merger was gone, the company was in chaos, and tomorrow's headlines would be spectacular. Claire stood alone near the stage, her red dress now wrinkled, her perfect makeup streaked with tears. She looked at me with something that might have been regret, or might have been pure hatred. "Was it worth it?" she asked. "Destroying everything we built together?" I considered the question seriously. 20 years of marriage, a daughter who would have to live with this scandal, a life that would never be the same. "Claire," I said finally, "you destroyed what we built together the moment you decided I was disposable. I just made sure everyone else knew about it." I walked toward the exit, leaving her standing alone in the wreckage of her perfect plan. At the door, I turned back for one last look at the ballroom, crystal chandeliers still glittering, ice sculptures still melting, and the scattered remains of 300 people's evening entertainment. Peterson, the security guard, was waiting for me in the lobby. "Hell of a show in there," he said with something that might have been admiration. "Sometimes the system needs a hard reboot," I replied. "What happens now?" I thought about it as we walked toward the valet stand. Now? Now I go home, pour myself a drink, and wait for the lawyers to call. Martin and Claire will probably try to destroy me in court, claim I'm a vindictive ex-husband making things up. Will that work? I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in months. "Peterson, I'm a software engineer. I don't make things up. I document them. And I've got backups of everything." The valet brought my car around, and I tipped him generously. It had been an expensive evening, but worth every penny. As I drove home through the quiet streets, I thought about what came next. The divorce would be ugly, the legal battles would be expensive, and my name would be in the papers for all the wrong reasons. But for the first time in months, I felt like myself again. Not extra weight to be discarded, not a problem to be solved, but a man who'd fought back against people who thought they could rewrite his life without his permission. I pulled into my driveway and sat in the car for a moment, looking at the house I'd shared with Claire for 15 years. Tomorrow, everything would change. But tonight, I'd won. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's making sure the truth gets a proper system upgrade.